Hi friends, welcome back to e-learning. Today we are starting week 6. I can't believe it. And we are starting a new standard in reading. Actually, it's not a new standard. It's something that you guys have previously learned. We're just going to dig a little bit deeper into it and practice a little bit more. And as you can see, we're going to be focusing on text structure and also we're really going to be focusing on sequence this week. Now, I know it's been a hot minute since we've done this, so I just want to review quickly the different types of text structure and how you identify text structure in a text, and then how we can work with sequencing in our passages. So let's take a look at our LEQ. Over here it says, how can I describe the relationship between historical events using sequencing words? So let's go ahead and let's unpack. When we talk about the word describe, when we're trying to describe something, we're kind of, we're telling about it. Okay, either we're orally telling about it or we're writing about it, but we are describing, we're talking about it. Okay, so now let's take a look at that word relationship. When I think of that word relationship, I think about how things go together. How are they connected? So in these events that we're going to be describing, they have to go together. They have to be connected somehow. So I'm going to put that word connected between historical events. So when I think of that word historical, I think of history, and I think of events that happened in our past that have led to certain important events. So we're going to put past events using sequencing words. So what are some sequencing words that we have used already in school? We've used first, next, after that, and so on. We've got finally as well. So we're going to be using those sequencing words. We can also use dates to help us with these sequencing words as well. And the reason I say dates, you'll see in the passage that we're going to be modeling here, the dates are really going to help us put these events in order. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next anchor chart here because I really want to focus on sequencing. And so we've got our sequencing anchor chart over here, which remember, sequencing is the order of events. So we want to make sure that we are putting those events in order. So we graphic organizers really do help the readers like you organize the events and put them in order from beginning to end. Now, the reason we want to put them in order from beginning to end is because each event is caused by something else. And we want to make sure when we're retelling, we're putting things in order because you don't want to tell a story out of order. That just wouldn't make any sense. So the graphic organizer that we've used in the past is the sequencing tower. It's kind of like our main idea tower. And it looks very similar to this one that we have right here in this anchor chart. So we're going to be using something very similar to that on a piece of paper to put these events in order. So let's go ahead. I'm going to circle this one so you guys remember. And so the text that I'm going to be modeling with you guys is this text. It's called Louis Braille. And this is a historical text or informational piece about the life of Louis Braille. It's kind of like a biography, kind of telling a little bit about him and how we came to use Braille, which if you aren't familiar with Braille, it's what blind people use to read, and it's those little bumps that you see on different places around school, and also they make special books for students that are blind so that they can read. And so we're going to read a little bit about him, and we're also going to be sequencing some events as we're reading. So remember, the first thing that we do when we get text is we first have to determine if it is literature or informational. So I'm pretty sure by now, I would hope that we can already see by what we've already learned in my unpacking of the LEQ and our anchor chart and this anchor chart here that we are going to be focusing on informational this week. So I'm going to go ahead and put informational up here so I don't forget. And so now the next thing I'm going to do is, since it is informational, I want to see if I can determine the structure of the text. So what I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to be looking for some signal words as I'm looking at this text. So I'm just going to browse it and I'm going to see, okay, do any signal words pop out at me? Do I see any cause and effect relationships? Do I see any sequencing words, for example, first, next, then? Do I see any dates? So I'm going to go ahead and just like peruse through here to see if I see any of those things. And if I do see them, what am I going to do? Right, I'm going to circle them. I'm going to make sure that I put a star by them, circle them, something, so that it brings attention to it so I don't forget. So as I can see, as I'm looking at this right here, oh, I already see a date right here. And let's keep reading. He started school. Oh, that's a word right there that's going to tell me. I don't know what happened to my pen. There it goes. Started school when he was 7. All right. Oh, I see another date up here. And I've got another date right here. Let's go to the next page. Oh, I see another date right here. That looks like it's important. And we've got another date. Okay, so as I'm looking through this, oh, here's another one. So as I'm looking through this, the words that I have found so far are all guiding me to think that the structure of this text is sequencing. Would you guys agree with me? Yeah. So what we're going to do is, now that I've determined the structure of the text, now I can use the graphic organizer. So remember I said we're going to be using the flow chart here, which is like our main idea tower. We're going to call it our sequencing tower, so that we can put these events in order, so that it helps me retell and comprehend what the text was about. Right? So here's the first page of the story. And we've already said we've found some signal words right here. So I'm going to go ahead and recircle those so that we have them right there. And so now I have my piece of paper. So on my piece of paper, I'm going to go ahead and put the title. And so I'm going to read my text. I know that we're focusing on sequencing, so I'm going to be looking for events that are important in his life. And then I'm going to record them down on my piece of paper. Now, this is something that you guys can do before you type in Schoology the events, just like we've been doing last week with our central message, where you put your detail, and then central message. This week, you're going to be putting events in order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then uploading it into Schoology that way. But if you're reading a text and you want to jot down your notes on a piece of paper before you upload it to Schoology, that is fine. I suggest that if you need to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start reading. Louis Braille was born in France in 1809. Well, that to me sounds like that's important, so let's keep going. When he was 3, Louis had an accident and later lost sight in both of his eyes. There was no medicine at the time to cure him. Okay, so that's a little chunk of paragraph that I just read. So I want to stop and I want to think, okay, were there anything in there that was important that I should probably write down as an important event? Right. I already see that we've got 1809. That's when he was born. Okay, so I'm going to put in 1809. Now remember, I don't want to copy straight from the text, so I'm going to put this into my own words. So in 1809, Louis was born in France. Okay, so I've got that. He was born in France. Was there anything else that was important in that paragraph? Something really important happened. Now, it doesn't tell me a date, but it tells me when it happened when he was 3. So what happened when he was 3? Right, it says right here that he had an accident that caused him to lose his sight in both of his eyes. Okay, so that would be my second event. Now, what year did that happen? Do I know what year that was? I could probably figure it out because I know he was born in 1809, and when he was 3, he lost his sight. So can I count 3 years and add that to my graphic organizer. Right, so 1810, 1811, 1812 would be 3 years later. So in 1812, excuse me, in 1812, Lewis had an accident that caused him to lose his sight. Okay. All right. So that is an important event because that sets up the rest of the story, because we know this is about how he created Braille so that students like him, people like him, could still read. Okay, so that was after the first paragraph. So let's go ahead and let's jump into paragraph 2 and see if there's any more important events that happened in his life. Louis started school when he was 7. He could not read or write. He learned by listening to the teacher and remembering what he heard. Okay, so there's another chunk of text, so I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to ask myself, okay, was there anything important that happened in that text and that piece? And I see that I circled that word started, because to me, that's a signal word that's telling an event is happening. So what started there? When he was 7, he started school. Okay, again, it doesn't tell me a date, but I can put that down as my next event. I can also probably figure out the date because I know that it was when he was 7, and I know he was born in 1809. So if I add 7 years to that, that'll tell me the date. Okay, so I can add those years, and I get 1816. He started school. Is there anything else that I want to add there? He started school, and he learned, because it says he learned by listening to the teacher and remembering what he heard. And he learned by listening to the teacher. Because remember, he was blind, and so he couldn't see the text. He could only learn from listening. All right, so let's keep going, and let's go to paragraph 3 and see if there's any other events in there. In 1819, Louis switched to a school for blind people in Paris. The books were big, heavy, and hard to read. Students read slowly by tracing huge raised letters on each page. Okay, so there's another chunk of text with another important event. So I see right here, in 1819 is when he switched to a school that was for blind people. So, do we think that's important in his life? Yeah. So I'm going to put that down as my 4th event. So in 1819, he switched to a school for blind people. Okay, and there he started using books that were big, that were heavy, they were harder to read, and students read slowly by tracing huge raised letters on each page. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next paragraph and see if there's anything else important. In 1821, a soldier named Charles Barbier came to the school. He had invented a way for soldiers to read and write in the dark. His system used sets of 12 raised dots on paper. Each set stood for common French sounds. Students touched the dots with their fingers to read. Okay, so is there something important that happened there? This to me sounds like it's setting up the story for something important that's going to happen later on. So I definitely want to add that on there. So that would be our 5th event in 1821. And so what happened in 1821? Right? In 1821, a soldier, and his name was Charles Barbier, came to Louis's school, And it sounds like it says he had invented a way for soldiers to read and write in the dark. His system used sets of 12 raised dots. And so he showed them the system he invented. Okay, so, all right, we're going to keep reading now on our second page of our text to see if there are any more events that we need to add to our graphic organizer. So I still have our graphic organizer up here, a little bit smaller, and then we're going to go ahead and continue working on this next page here. So let's read the next paragraph. It says, the system was hard to learn and use. Lewis knew he could make the code simpler. By the time he was 15, he had created a system that used sets of 6 dots. Each set stood for an alphabet letter instead of a sound. Okay, so he was using that system that the soldier Charles Barbier invented in his school, but it was hard for him to use. So he knew he could make it simpler. So when he was 15, he created a system that used sets of 6 dots. So I can add that as our next event onto our piece of paper. So when he was 15, let's figure out how old he was. So if it was excuse me, if he was born in 1809, 15 years later would be this next event. So that would be in 1824. He made a code. Remember, I don't want to copy it straight from the text, so he made a code that was easier to use. Okay, so let's keep reading and let's add some more to our graphic organizer. So in the next paragraph it says, Lewis became a teacher and continued to improve his code. He died in 1852. Okay, so do we think that date is important to add to our graphic organizer? So that he was born, we already have that in 1809, and he died in 1852. So we want to add that to our graphic organizer because that seems like it's an important event. So in 1852, Lewis died. Okay, so let's keep on reading because there's going to be some more events in here that lead up to why we call it the Braille alphabet and whatever happened with his invention. Okay, so in the next paragraph it says, in 1878, the World Congress for the Blind made Lewis's code the system of reading and writing for all blind people. The system was called Braille after Lewis's last name. In the 1940s, Braille was adapted to almost every language. Today, blind people all over the world use the Braille system. Okay, so some important things happened in that last paragraph. So in 1878, I would think that would be an important event because that's when the World Congress for Blind made Lewis's code the system for reading and writing for all blind people. Okay, so that's going to be event number 8, and so that was in 1878. We can say the World Congress for the blind. And now I want to put this into my own words. So it says here that made Lewis's code the system for reading and writing for all blind people. Used Lewis's system for reading and writing for all blind people. So that's pretty cool. Even after he died, they still honored him by using this system that he created that was much easier than the other one that the soldier created. And then in 1940s, for our 9th event, in our last event, it says in the 1940s, Braille was adopted into almost every language so that everybody all around the world could use the Braille system. So in the 1940s, Braille was another word for adapted. We can say translated into almost every language. Okay, and then there's our last event. So when I'm looking at our events and we put in order here, I have my events 1 through 9. So when I'm focusing on something in particular, like the question that you're going to be doing on Wednesday and Thursday, I can come back to this and use this as for my summary. So stay tuned for part 2 of this lesson that you're going to have on Wednesday. But for today, you guys are going to be reading a text about the mosquitoes and the Zika virus, and you're going to be doing the same thing, but you're really going to be focusing on one paragraph, and you're going to be putting the events in that paragraph in order. Okay? All right, guys. Have a good day.